This episode is proudly supported by Pepe Sayer Australian Cultured Butter.
At Pepe Sayer, we focus on quality. So if someone comes into your restaurant and they see you're using Pepe Sayer, they know immediately that that is a quality product you've got in front of you on the table. And that comes from a decade of just doing quality butter day after day.
For more information, go to pepesayer.com.au.
We're actually giving you value beyond just dollars and cents. And I hope people feel that, because it's something that we try and get better at every day. And we really give a shit when it comes to the product and the experience that one will have coming into a fishbowl.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. It wasn't all that long ago that the idea of fast food and quick service restaurants were considered anything but healthy or quality. But being fast need not be associated with poor quality. We've seen a swell of operators change the mindset and perceptions of the quick service sector. What does this sector look like now? Nathan Dalah is the co-owner of Fishbowl with over 32 stores in New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria. Nathan, how are you?
Good, thank you, and thanks for having me on.
It's good to have you on the show. The quick service sector has really changed a lot in the last couple of years. How do you see it? Yeah,
well, look, interesting that you pointed out that it has changed dramatically in the last 5 years, and we as a business have actually been in operation for what's coming on to 6 years. So, I mean, I would acknowledge it was probably a combination of good timing and good luck that we were able to actually pick up some of those, really big shifts in the industry and actually develop a business model around that.
Tell us a little bit about Fishbowl.
Yeah, cool. Well, look, it was started by myself and two partners, Nick and Casper. It's just coming on to 6 years ago now. And we were all studying at the time and we're at university, and we're basically just looking for a solution for, healthy food that tasted really good, that was accessible and convenient. And there was really, in terms of the space, when we, like I said, you just go to your, any food court, or, you wanted to go and spend $15 on a meal. And at that time, health and, quality produce was really, it was already kind of top of mind for young people. And there really were no good options, or we felt there were no options that kind of met our needs at the time. So we kind of decided, what would a solution look like? I grew up around, I love Japanese food. I did quite a bit of traveling to Tokyo, and it was always one of my favorite cities in the world. And I kind of just looked at sushi and ate in Japanese food as a cuisine, and just thought, look, people like the flavors. It exists on every high street in every city around the world. What does this look like if we actually, put a contemporary spin on these flavors, but in a salad, which we felt was something that was lacking at the time. So in doing that, we kind of just conceptualized a menu and an offering, and set up our first store in Bondi in a 30 square meter shop that we've since relocated from. And I think from the start, our focus was always on, let's try and just create the most beautiful product that we can create, because at the end of the day, that is, our core proposition. And beyond that, we thought, how else can we incorporate our values and our interests into this business, which I guess is where we started to have a bit of fun with design and personality, fashion, music, and business as well. These were all interests of ours. And like I said, I was at uni at the time and just wanted any excuse to leave. And I felt like I had, perhaps carved one out for myself.
How did you go from idea to the food in the bowl? Can you take us through that step, given that you didn't have that food industry background? How did you land on getting such a good product in the bowl from that idea?
Well, look, I always say you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelette. And I just figured, I've always been I like problem solving. And to me, like I kind of had what I felt like I felt like I'd identified a problem in the industry, in particular in the QSR space. And to me, solving that problem was actually, well, how do I actually get it together? Like, how do I actually? It's one thing to identify the problem; it's another thing to teach yourself how to solve it. And I did always have an interest in food and in business. I had an interest in in people, and so I kind of just. The first thing I did was, I guess, recognize, well, I need good suppliers. So I, rather than going to uni one day, I just went to the fish markets, and you know what, to be honest, that was an education in itself, from asking, do you guys sell product, to actually understanding, like, what even does it mean to wholesale? That was actually how I found I started talking to a few seafood suppliers out there and started to just develop an understanding and slightly, a slight education into the, I guess, just the kind of processing and handling of seafood and what that would look like if I was to actually bring it to life in a shop front. And at the same time, like, as you know, at the fish markets, there's also a providor. And so I started asking them similar questions about produce. And I had my ideas as to what I would like the offering to be. And like I said, without being I wasn't from a chef background. I had never worked in any kitchens, but I grew up loving to cook. And food was always a huge part of my life. We would cook dinner as a family throughout the week. Like, we would all, like, just myself and my siblings would take turns cooking. And then on Friday night, we would all always get together and cook as a family. And it was just something that became part of our livelihood and part of it, like a really significant part of our lives. And so I started just to, I had a basic understanding. I felt like I knew how to, I was a home cook. You can make pretty tasty food. And the thing with Japanese food, and it was like, just keep it simple, like, hero the product. We in Australia have access to really beautiful and fresh seafood. We've got access to, beautiful produce, and, you start to go down this rabbit hole of actually, learning about the spectrum of quality, with respect to all those different suppliers. And for me, like, I always cared about that. So, receiving a practical education by talking, with growers and suppliers and different people that would end up handling the product that we ended up getting to store. You kind of you learn a lot, and we iterated the product for, probably about 6 months. Constantly just trying it, refining it, different combinations, different recipes. We gave it to all of our friends. And eventually I had to, the way I actually got that first store going is I actually had a taste test. The landlords in the particular building that I was in asked me to come into their office, which was in on Hunter Street in the CBD. And I literally, that morning I went to the fish markets. I bought the sides of, what do we have at the time? We would have had yellowfin tuna, a salmon sashimi. We had, kingfish variety. I went and got all the fresh produce from the same markets, and went back home. I had a mandolin, a good knife, and I and then I packaged it all up, put it in a cool box, and took it up to their office and sat around a big boardroom table with 3 landlords, and we ate some food, and they said, "This is great. Like, let's do a deal." And that's how that first store came to me.
Wow. I want to explore what you've created and the offering that you have shortly, but you gave us a little bit of a glimpse to family life when you were younger, but take us back to sort of when you were a kid, and what sort of role did food play, and what sort of feasts did you have?
Well, I was from, we're from like I said, a real food loving background. My dad's Iraqi Israeli, and my mum's Hungarian, so there was always a lot of robust flavors in the household, and also a lot of opinion around food. So like I said, we would cook a lot, a lot of Middle Eastern food, but as a family, our favorite thing to do was actually sushi night. So when we still do it today. Not as often as we did back then, but every couple of months we'll get together, in which myself, my brothers and sisters, and my mum, we kind of just put together, like we just it's like we basically put out this all the base ingredients of your dream sushi spread. I'll share a photo with you. It's quite it's quite kind of funny to see, because we really went all out from making the tamago to, getting the right, containers to store rice at the right temperature. We all got pretty into it. And, that was actually the first way I set up Fishbowl. I was like, I remember those sushi nights and how we had all the different ingredients compartmentalized and stored and processed. And I saw myself in setting up the first Fishbowl as kind of the same thing, but rather than, rolling it up, we were actually tossing it as you do with the salad and creating a bowl.
Take us back to sort of the beginning and becoming an entrepreneur with this idea and moving into the food space. What were the challenges for you?
Well, look, everything was a challenge, but I kind of just embraced that. I liked that it never came easy, and enjoyed the feeling of achieving things. Like I said, just in the first instance, like just going about finding a retail store and like who to talk to, how to identify what makes a good location or separates a good one from a bad one. And I kind of just always thought I wanted to, like I said, I was at uni at the time, but I really was always just looking for an excuse to leave. So I was that kid on Gumtree looking for, businesses to like buy and anything just to kind of maintain the cash flow and get my parents off my back. That was what I was looking at doing or trying to do at the time. So I really always felt like, and I look, I don't use the word entrepreneur, but to me, creating my own business was always about combining things that I valued and things that I loved, and actually things that really interested me, and getting to do them all using the business as my vehicle. And in this case, the vehicle was food, and that was something that to me was something I always felt like I loved. It wasn't necessarily where I thought my career would end up. But I'm so glad I am, because it's such a dynamic space, and you do come across such an array of characters and situations, and like I said, all the kinds of problems and that do arise, and it has been really fun and has been really hard, but I think that's just kind of the feeling that we've learned to kind of ride with.
You mentioned that it started in 2016 in a tiny venue, about 30 square metres. It's grown to, over 30 venues now. Tell us about that growth period and how you've managed so many staff and so many venues without investors.
Well, look, starting out, like when we had that one store, and I started with my two friends at the time, Nick and Casper. I was the one that, when I say I had a food background, like that background translates to, we did a lot of cooking at home. But with as far as the two guys were concerned, Nick was starting business, Casper was working at a bar, and I went into that store thinking, I need to show these two guys how to both, make a salad better than I can make it, and then how to run the store, better than I can run it. And that was the mindset from day one. And, because I thought, like, if I can teach like two people that, if I can just teach them to care and to understand like why they're doing what they're doing, just in terms of the process of making a salad and what that looks like, and just how to interact with customers and how I think we should be interacting with customers. And if I could do that, maybe this was something that could grow. And so I always measured, how much the store itself would depend on me, because I felt like we just needed to create an ecosystem of, like I said, of people that wanted to be there, that wanted to produce beautiful food and create memorable experiences with customers. And that was the mindset from day one. And I knew, like, the challenge for me was, is this something that I can scale? Because that's what I haven't seen, like, in the industry, is can we scale the art of making food and not just treat, growth food businesses like a big set of robotics? Can we actually, rather than say, oh, this is how you dose dressing for a salad, actually teach people why we, use this much dressing in this particular salad, and why that changes from salad to salad. That was, to me, the thing that I wanted to scale. I wanted to scale the art of assembly. And yeah, like I said, just, I was like, I can't teach you to be great in a day, but I can teach you to care. And I just need you to want to make a beautiful product, and just be confident. And, the food's going to taste good. So that to me was the challenge from having, when we had one store, and that first store, it worked really well. And I think we did, what we were doing was resonating with a lot of people. And, that first store fed the growth of that second store in Darlinghurst 9 months later. And those two stores fed the growth of the third store in Manly 6 months after that, and so on and so forth. And yeah, we have been a cash flow positive business, and it is what has gotten us to this point. And I also thought that was really important from the standpoint of, growing or going as far as our customers would take us. You hear so many stories of people that just get, kind of a bit too ahead of their skis and just think, oh, let's just roll this thing out. And don't get me wrong, like everyone was saying that to me, let's just roll this thing out and, be the next that or the next that. And I was like, I don't want to be the next anything. I just want to be the first this. And that's still, where we're at. We've been going for 6 years. And yes, we do have over 30 stores, but that's really only about 5 stores per year. And that to me is the amount I feel like we can maintain quality. We can maintain consistency. We can maintain personality and integrity. All these things that mattered to me when we had one store is exactly the same way as I'll approach the 34th store and the 35th store. It's that having that first store mentality. That's what we always say here. And, the minute we take our customer for granted, or we take the fact that this is actually working, to me is the minute it all starts to turn to shit. And that's kind of the mindset I want everyone to have. It's how do we actually get better as we grow? And are we actually doing, our actions leading to a better product and a better experience? And if they're not, then just turn around.
At the core of everything that you serve is sustainability, and you're really concerned about where the produce comes from that you are selling and ends up in the bowl. Tell us a bit about all the areas that you sort of are focused on in regards to sustainability.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of areas, and I can, I think the two really, one of the things on sustainability when it comes to Fishbowl is, once again, it was an area of the industry that we looked at and said, what is going on in here? This is an industry that's responsible for so much, single-use plastic and so much just consumption of ingredients. Like the downstream effects of producing food at volume are significant, and that's something that we were taught to care about growing up. That's something that we were taught to care about at university, and so that was part of the foundation of our business. It wasn't something that we kind of one day sustainability and, corporate responsibility became a factor and we had to go, oh guys, how do we change our business to look like that? It was just something that we were able to kind of morph and grow with. But like, I'll speak to two things that, that do have a big effect in our industry and how our business is addressing them. And the first would be packaging. Obviously we are we're a predominantly takeaway business. And, from when we started, we started 6 years ago. We were serving all of our product in PET, really a fancy, like they're basically plastic, right? They said that they were, yes, they were recyclable, but nothing actually ends up getting recycled. Yes, they were, said to be able to break down, but just buried in your garden, it's probably going to be there a year later. And so, we went down this rabbit hole of actually asking our suppliers, guys, we need better packaging solutions. And they didn't have them at the time, but we worked really close with them. We were able to look at examples that were overseas, and we were able to look at examples that were being used in other areas of packaging and say, can't we just make bowls that are fully compostable and lids that are fully compostable? And can we change our whole drinks range to be 100% glass or recyclable aluminium? Similarly, we've also got, reusable water bottles, in all the stores. Like, these were things that they always mattered to us, and we wanted to be at the forefront of that kind of activity. So yeah, look, when it comes to packaging, our range is 100% compostable. And once again, we didn't just take our supplier's word for it. Like, we got the samples to the office, and my partner Nick just went and buried a few samples in we've got a compost garden out the back. He just went and buried a few samples, didn't even tell any of us. And sure enough, I think it was like 3.5 weeks. He had the number of days exact, but he goes, 3.5 weeks later, it was gone. And he came back and goes, guys, I want to show you something. And like he actually did he took a photo of it where it was, and it was just, we were like, mad, like this actually works. It's not just a feel good story. Like, this thing is actually take our food home, take the packaging, bury it in your garden, and try it for yourself. Like, it will disappear, and in a matter of weeks. So that was really cool. And once again, we just applied that approach to every area of the business and every area of packaging. Another big area where we realized we were having some potentially some downstream effects that we felt could be improved just was in the way that we sourced and used salmon. It's a top seller at Fishbowl, obviously, being Fishbowl and salmon sashimi being something that people do love and being a fish that everyone is familiar with. And, frankly, we did start, that day when I went to the fish markets and I tried to find the freshest sashimi I could find, it was coming from Tasmania, and it was coming from a beautiful farm in Tasmania that were doing things above board, and all the rest of it is the Australian standards are very, very high as they are. So it's not to throw shade on the industry down south there, but the journey I went on was, can we find a better solution? And so that was a journey for us. And over the last year and a half, we've been sampling, different salmon from Scotland, from Australia, from New Zealand, and we eventually landed on a product, on an ocean farm product coming out of Stewart Island in New Zealand South, which is a really remote part of the world, the southernmost point of New Zealand. It's a massive island. There's barely any roads there. The only people that live on the island are people that either environmental conservationists, and there's a really small footprint salmon farm called Big Glory Bay, and they produce a breed of salmon called king salmon or Chinook salmon, and it really is like a world-class product. It's a beautiful product. They only produce a few thousand metric tons of it per annum, which by comparison to say your farms in Tasmania, I think the smallest one's probably producing about 50 or 60,000 metric tons. So these guys are producing 2. So it's a really unique product, a really beautiful product. They're just the lengths that they go to produce it and process it and handle it and then air freight it to us. Something that we had to work on, like I said, over the past year. But we can proudly say that when you eat salmon at Fishbowl, you're eating Big Glory Bay salmon. And, it is something that I definitely encourage people to try. It's noticeably different.
Tell us a bit about the selection of location for the offering. Is it really vital in nailing that location as you've grown?
Look, like everything, we've learnt on the fly. I didn't come into this, having any experience as a development manager or someone who knew what good real estate looked like insofar as QSR restaurants. But look, we got a bunch of crew that work with us that they're here because they want to learn fast and they want to learn hard and fast. And so myself, everything we do is, like I said, it's just a process of iteration. So we've gotten better at site selection. It's something that we wanted to prove to ourselves that we could make Fishbowl work in nearly any setting. So that meant any size, any location. They said we were crazy opening in Bondi in the middle of winter. And now, it's funny, Bondi seems really obvious to everyone right now, but 6 years ago, even in a new building, people were like, oh, you're going to have a bit of you're going to have a tricky time there. Whereas I approached it hey, look, if we can create a product that works in Bondi in the middle of winter, then, we might actually be onto something. So yeah, look, the way I look at a lot of real estate, I've kind of worked out what does work well for us. And I try and find locations that, that kind of that do have the demographic that I feel our product will resonate with. But ultimately, I don't want to restrict, access to anyone. I want it to be convenient. I want people to have a better alternative than the traditional fast food players, that might appear in food courts or in shopping centers or on high streets, where we're doing something at a similar price point, but we're actually giving you value beyond just, dollars and cents. And I hope people feel that, because it's something that we try and get better at every day. And we like I said, we really give a shit when it comes to the product and the experience that one will have coming into a Fishbowl.
the last couple of years, the adversity has made everyone in the food sector rethink things and change the way they do things. Has it changed the way you operate or the way that you want to do what you want to do in the industry?
Has it changed the way we operate? Look, for us, it was about staying the course. It has. Look, the last 2 years has thrown out a lot of challenges, but people forget, the industry itself was heavily challenged going into 2020. And, those challenges, sure, they were exacerbated, but we just looked at it and we asked ourselves, what is in our control? What are the areas of our business that we can actually get better at whilst we can't travel, whilst we can't put new stores in the ground, whilst we can't share our product with as many people as we would like to? And, we addressed all those areas, be it, better suppliers, better handling processes, better logistics, better marketing, better branding. These were all, we just looked at all the areas of our business that we could affect in a positive way and really improve. And we kind of saw ourselves as being in this slingshot moment whereby, sure, the last 2 years we were in that, that kind of drawback position, but we knew that, we had the product and the people that when we came out of it, that it would propel us, it would propel us once once the climate improved and once the, things started to normalize. And I think that's where we're at the moment. The stores are busier than ever. The people that we're attracting and developing are better than ever and more motivated than ever. And it's so cool to see because, we want people in this environment to actually come in and grow and develop and learn with us and grow with us. And it has been good and rewarding to see that happen over the last few months.
Well, what you've created is quite extraordinary. And what do you love about what you do?
Well, I love working with amazing people around a product that I love and in a brand that I love. It's the kind of, I love problem solving, and I see that as really at the core of my job. I'm dealing with different problems every day, and I'm loving the challenge of having to come up with creative solutions for them. I love working with different people across different industries and understanding how, the kind of tentacles of our own brand and product and the doors that they're able to open, with respect to growth. And, that's ultimately what drives me. It's that not knowing what the future holds, but knowing that if we can kind of, do the work today and maintain this mindset of let's get better as we grow, I think that it should only lead to good things down the line. And of course, it'll lead to more challenges. And, the bigger you get, the more the challenges do kind of tend to snowball. But these are all things that we're embracing and prepared for. And like I said, we really do have an amazing team of people that do an incredible job of just making sure that our business is kind of heading in the right direction and also staying true to who we said we were when we had one store.
Well, Nathan, congratulations on what you are building. It's been an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear just a bit of your story. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks so much for having me on today. Really appreciate it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.